Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the Silent Corners of Ooo, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight, and what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. Tonight, we settle into the quiet folds of one of the most dreamlike realms ever glimpsed in Adventure Time. A place that appeared suddenly, almost out of nowhere, yet lingered in our memories long after Finn returned home. A kingdom made not of stone or wood, but of cushions and quilts. The Pillow Kingdom. It begins with something so ordinary. Finn, worn from the adventures and battles of his daily life, stumbles into a pillow fort built inside his home. It looks like the kind of place any child might crawl into on a rainy afternoon, a jumble of fabric and fluff, shadows softened by warm lamplight. But in the logic of Ooo, even the most ordinary corners can hold extraordinary doors. As Finn sinks deeper into the pillows, the air shifts, the walls stretch, and soon he finds himself in a vast kingdom that feels as real as the waking world, yet carries the gentle softness of a dream. The Pillow Kingdom is not loud. There are no fanfares, no armies, no crashing waves of destiny. Instead, it greets Finn with the sound of cloth swaying in a breeze, with streets built from cushions and townsfolk with bodies stitched from fabric. They welcome him, not as an outsider, but as though he belongs. And this is where the true mystery begins. We can imagine what it must have felt like for Finn in those first moments. The surreal awareness that he had crossed into a place where time seemed to follow a different rhythm. Days unfurled like fabric in the wind, one after another, gentle and unhurried. Finn did not question it for long. He stayed. He lived. And in that stillness he found something many heroes rarely do, a sense of home that was not built on battles or quests, but on the simple threads of daily life. He grew older there. He found companionship, love, and even family. We watch him as he raises children, as he grows into a man, and finally, as he reaches the end of his long, pillow-soft life, and all of it passes with a sense of inevitability, like the slow turning of pages in a storybook. The strange magic of this kingdom is that it holds a lifetime inside its folds, and then lets it fade when the dream ends. But what was the Pillow Kingdom truly? Was it another dimension, stitched together from the dreams of tired adventurers? Was it a hidden corner of Ooo, tucked behind the fabric of reality? Or was it simply the quiet dream of Finn's heart, given shape for a single precious lifetime? Adventure Time never told us outright. It left the mystery unresolved, resting gently in silence. And that quiet is what makes it one of the most haunting places in the land of Ooo. We can imagine its origin as we lie here tonight. Perhaps the Pillow Kingdom was born from the imagination of children across time, all those forts built on rainy afternoons, glowing with flashlights and filled with laughter. Maybe each pillow fort in Ooo, from the smallest blanket tent to the largest castle of cushions, leads to the same hidden realm, a place where the softest moments of life are preserved, waiting for the weary to stumble inside. Think of how its streets might stretch beyond what Finn ever saw. Vast boulevards, lined with pillows of every shape and color. Quilted towers rising like clouds into the sky. Rivers of fabric flowing gently, carrying with them the stories of lives half dreamed and half remembered. Each corner of that kingdom could hold a fragment of someone's memory, a childhood blanket, a favorite cushion, a stuffed toy long forgotten but never lost, all stitched together into a world that feels endlessly familiar. And there is something quietly tragic in that. For while the Pillow Kingdom offers comfort, it also reveals the passing nature of time. Finn lives a full lifetime there, yet wakes in his own bed as though no time had passed at all. His children, his love, his quiet days in that realm, all gone like the fading warmth of a dream. Yet perhaps that is the secret truth of the Pillow Kingdom. It is not meant to last forever. It is a reminder of the fleeting beauty of life, condensed into a single dream that feels like eternity. Even now, years after the show aired, fans still wonder, was the Pillow Kingdom real, or was it all in Finn's mind? The ambiguity is part of its magic. In the soft logic of both answers can be true. The Pillow Kingdom may be real, waiting in the folds of pillows everywhere, and it may also be a dream, a reflection of Finn's longing for peace after so many battles. And if we follow that thought deeper, we might see the Pillow Kingdom as a reflection of ourselves too. All of us carry soft places within, memories of comfort and warmth that live just beneath the surface of the waking world. The Pillow Kingdom is where those memories go to rest. It is where all the unspoken stories of rest and comfort gather, waiting to be dreamed again. Imagine for a moment the architecture of that hidden place. Not towers of stone or steel, but cushions stacked in layers, stitched into walls that seem to breathe with quiet warmth. Lanterns of soft fabric glowing faintly with a golden light. Windows shaped from folds in the cloth, opening to skies that stretch forever in muted blues and creams, as though painted with the brush of a dreamer. Nonsense, everywhere in the kingdom there is a gentleness. Even the streets themselves feel padded underfoot, guiding each traveler slowly, without hurry, as though the land wishes for no one to stumble. And perhaps this is why Finn adjusted so quickly. For a boy raised on adventure, who often lived on edge between danger and survival, the Pillow Kingdom offered something he had never been given in his waking life, the chance to live without fear. There is a subtle lesson here. In a series filled with monsters, curses, and the echoes of a ruined world, the Pillow Kingdom stands apart. It is not a place of trials or conquest. It is not a prize to be won. It is simply life itself distilled into soft days and quiet years. Finn does not battle there. He simply grows. And in that growth, we glimpse a version of him that we never see in Ooo, a man who knows peace. But even in peace, the weight of time cannot be ignored. As seasons drift by, Finn finds himself older. His body changes. His voice deepens. His children grow. The very nature of the Pillow Kingdom is to carry him through these stages faster than the waking world, as though teaching him that even in the softest of places, life moves forward, and eventually it ends. This is perhaps why the Pillow Kingdom lingers so strongly in the hearts of viewers, because beneath its whimsical fabric walls and cushioned skies lies a meditation on mortality, the kind that is gentle, not harsh. It does not frighten us with decay or endings. Instead, it wraps the idea of death in quilts and lullabies, showing us that even the final chapter can be warm and full of love. And so, when Finn finally passes away in that world, it does not feel like tragedy. It feels like the closing of a dream, a sigh, a release. And then he awakens in his own bed, young again, with Jake at his side as if nothing had happened. To the world of Ooo, it was just a night, but to Finn, it was a lifetime. Now we may ask, why would such a place exist in Ooo at all? What purpose does it serve in the great weave of the land's mythology? Some have speculated that the Pillow Kingdom is not a random dream, but a creation of higher beings. Perhaps it is tied to Prismo, the Wishmaster, who dwells in his own strange chamber beyond time. The Pillow Kingdom could be a pocket reality where unspoken wishes are granted, not wishes for treasure or glory, but for rest, for the quiet life never lived. Others suggest that the Pillow Kingdom belongs to the dreamscape, the vast realm where minds wander while bodies sleep. We know Adventure Time treats dreams as real places. The cosmic owl flies through them, bearing visions that shape destiny. If the cosmic owl represents dreams of fate, then the Pillow Kingdom might represent dreams of comfort. A place that holds not prophecy, but solace. There is another thought, too. The Pillow Kingdom might not be external at all. It could simply be Finn's inner self, conjured into vivid form. His deepest longing stitched into a reality so convincing he could live there for decades. In this reading, the Pillow Kingdom is not about magic or cosmic law. It is about the way our minds create sanctuaries to shelter us from hardship. For Finn, that sanctuary was made of pillows. For others, it might be made of childhood homes, old friends, or familiar landscapes. And yet, whether it was real or imagined, the kingdom's impact remains. Finn carries the memory of that life, even if the details blur. He knows what it means to age, to raise a family, to let go. He has seen the full shape of a human life, even though his waking body is still young. In this way, the Pillow Kingdom may have given him something far greater than rest. It gave him wisdom. We can even trace how this wisdom influences his choices in later adventures. Finn, who once longed for glory, grows more reflective as the seasons go on. He values friendship and connection more than conquest. He begins to understand the fragility of time, the importance of kindness, the inevitability of change. Perhaps these were lessons first sown into him during his years beneath those cushioned skies. And if we step back to look at the story of Adventure Time as a whole, the Pillow Kingdom seems almost like a pause in the symphony, a quiet movement between battles, a lullaby woven to the chaos. It reminds us, as it reminded Finn, that even in a world of cosmic horrors and post-apocalyptic landscapes, there must be space for stillness, for rest, for dreams. So when we think of the Pillow Kingdom, we are not only thinking of Finn's secret lifetime, we are thinking of our own quiet sanctuaries, the places that cradle us when the world feels heavy, the memories that soften the edges of time. Adventure Time, in its wisdom, did not tell us what the Pillow Kingdom truly was, because perhaps it is different for everyone. A personal space, stitched from the fabric of our own hearts. Think again of the way Finn entered this place, not through a grand portal or a magical spell, but by crawling into a pillow fort. This choice of doorway feels important. It tells us something about the way Ooo treats the extraordinary. The grandest mysteries often begin in the smallest of gestures. A blanket pulled over the head, a fort made of cushions on the floor. Something every child has done, yet in Ooo, such actions might open to entire kingdoms. This is one of Adventure Time's most subtle strengths. The show suggests that wonder does not always come from faraway planets or ancient prophecies. Sometimes it comes from the simple corners of our own rooms, transformed by imagination. In this way, the Pillow Kingdom reflects not only Finn's journey, but the childhood of every viewer who ever hid in a nest of blankets and pretended they were somewhere else. The kingdom becomes more than a location. It becomes a shared memory, familiar even to those who have never stepped inside it. Oh, if we let our minds wander along its quilted streets, we might imagine entire neighborhoods Finn never saw. Soft courtyards where children play with fabric animals that seem stitched from dreams. Markets lined with stalls of pillows in every shade, their vendors speaking in voices as hushed as lullabies. Perhaps there are great halls where the elders of the kingdom gather, not to rule or to command, but simply to share stories of the lives that drift through their realm. Each building, each pillow, might hold echoes of someone who once entered in their sleep. And what of time itself in this place? We know Finn grew old there, yet only a night passed in Ooo. This suggests the Pillow Kingdom exists on a different rhythm, a gentler clock. Perhaps time there is not measured in days and nights, but in breaths and heartbeats. When one rests, time expands. When one wakes, it contracts again. In this sense, the Pillow Kingdom becomes an embodiment of how sleep feels to us all. A single night may hold entire lifetimes in our dreams, only to dissolve when morning light touches the curtains. It is tempting to wonder how many others have entered this kingdom before Finn. Did past adventurers of Ooo stumble into its folds only to return with no memory? Could heroes long forgotten have lived entire hidden lives there, shaping the fabric of the kingdom with their stories? Each pillow, each cushion, might be stitched from the remnants of those forgotten dreams. When Finn walked those streets, he was perhaps walking on the memories of countless others who had passed through before him. Oh, there is also something quietly cosmic about the Pillow Kingdom. In the larger mythos of Adventure Time, we often encounter entities who control grand aspects of existence. Time, death, dreams, creation. Against such powers, the Pillow Kingdom seems small. Yet in its softness, it hints at a truth even those cosmic beings may not control: rest, comfort, the soul's need for peace. Perhaps the universe itself, with all its chaos and endless cycles, created the Pillow Kingdom as a counterbalance, a realm where nothing is asked of you but to breathe and live. And yet, like all dreams, the Pillow Kingdom carries fragility. It cannot last forever. Even within the story, Finn's time there ends not by choice, but by inevitability. One moment, he is an old man closing his eyes for the final time. The next, he is back in his young body, awakened in the waking world. This fragility mirrors our own lives. No matter how deeply we wish for certain moments to last, they always dissolve. The Pillow Kingdom becomes a symbol of impermanence, wrapped in comfort, but still reminding us that endings come. This may be why so many fans describe the Pillow Kingdom episode as one of the most emotional in the entire series, because it dares to speak softly about the things we often fear: aging, passing on, saying goodbye. But it does so in a way that eases us. It does not dwell on sorrow, but on gentleness. Finn's pillow life is not tragic. It is full. It is warm. And so, even when it fades, it leaves us with peace rather than despair. Let us think of the relationships Finn formed in that world, the family he raised, the companions he loved. Though we never knew them in detail, we saw enough to understand they were real to him, real enough that their memory lingered. This suggests that the Pillow Kingdom is not just a dream Finn had, but a realm with its own consistent life and history. When he entered, he joined an ongoing story. When he left, the story continued without him, fading beyond the veil of memory, but not erased. If that is true, then perhaps the Pillow Kingdom is eternal, a place where countless lives unfold, each woven together into a tapestry of softness. Some stay for years, some for only moments, but all are part of the kingdom's quiet rhythm. The very idea invites reflection. How many hidden lives might we ourselves live in our sleep, remembered only in fleeting glimpses when we wake? Could dreams be their own kingdoms, rich and vast, even if our waking minds only recall fragments? In this light, the Pillow Kingdom feels less like a single location and more like a universal truth given form. It is the embodiment of how we find rest, of how our souls create safe havens when the world outside feels heavy. It reassures us that such havens are not only private illusions, but shared places stitched into the fabric of existence itself. Places that welcome anyone who needs them. And so when Finn left that world behind, perhaps he did not lose it entirely. Perhaps the comfort of the Pillow Kingdom remains with him always, stitched into his heart like a hidden seam. And perhaps, when we close our eyes tonight, we too might brush against its edges, carried there by the simple act of lying down and letting go. If we linger quietly on the idea of the Pillow Kingdom as a universal refuge, we begin to see it not just as a story device, but as a philosophy. Adventure Time often teaches through metaphor, and here the metaphor is unmistakable. Every person carries within them a kingdom of rest, one that surfaces when the outside world is too much. For Finn, this sanctuary was soft and stitched, made of fabric and warmth. For us, it might be different, yet the principle is the same. There is always somewhere safe in the folds of the mind. The creators of the show left this place unresolved on purpose. They could have explained it away with a clear answer, a dream, a pocket dimension, a spell. But instead they allowed it to remain unspoken. That silence is powerful. It invites us to reflect, to imagine. By not defining the Pillow Kingdom, the story ensures that it belongs equally to Finn and to us. It becomes a shared canvas for our own interpretations, our own secret sanctuaries. Think of the textures that define this world. Pillows that sink beneath your hands yet rise again, cradling without resistance. Blankets that drape like waterfalls of fabric, heavy enough to comfort but never to burden. The very air feels hushed, as though every sound is softened before it reaches your ears. This sensory detail matters because it roots the Pillow Kingdom in something we all know intimately. The feeling of lying down after a long day, surrounded by softness, letting the weight of the world fall away. Finn's time there, though brief in the eyes of Ooo, offered him lessons that shaped the way he lived afterward. He understood the arc of life in a way few his age could. He knew the quiet joys of raising children, the bittersweet ache of watching them grow and leave, and the inevitability of closing his eyes for the venal time. When he returned to his waking life, he did not speak much about what he had seen, but perhaps he did not need to. The wisdom of that hidden lifetime was carried in his silence, in the way he chose gentleness more often than before. For us as listeners, there is comfort in this. Adventure Time reminds us that life, though fleeting, is also soft in its own ways. Even endings can hold peace. Even dreams can teach truths. The Pillow Kingdom is not a tragic story of loss, but a soothing story of completion, a circle closed, a reminder that our journeys, no matter how strange, always contain moments of rest along the way. It is worth noting, too, how this kingdom fits into the wider lore of Adventure Time. Ooo is full of chaos and destruction, shaped by the aftermath of the Mushroom War, and haunted by cosmic entities who bend reality itself. Against such a backdrop, the Pillow Kingdom feels almost impossible, a place untouched by war or darkness. And yet, its existence suggests that even in a world scarred by apocalypse, there are pockets of untouched gentleness, silent corners where life can simply be. Perhaps that is the truest form of magic Ooo has to offer, the persistence of peace in unlikely places. When we think of the Pillow Kingdom in this way, it resonates far beyond the episode. It becomes a symbol for the hidden worlds that may exist all around us, just beyond the veil of our senses. How many such places are tucked away in Ooo, never fully revealed, yet holding whole histories of their own? The Pillow Kingdom is only one of many. Its softness is unique, but its mystery is shared by countless other forgotten corners. And maybe that is the most important lesson this story whispers to us. That not every mystery must be solved. Not every hidden world must be mapped. Sometimes the beauty lies in simply knowing that such places exist, even if we never see them again. The Pillow Kingdom fades from the series after Finn wakes, but it remains alive in our memory. We carry it with us, adding our own details each time we recall it. In this way, the kingdom grows not through the show, but through us. So let us hold the Pillow Kingdom gently tonight. A place where time folds like fabric, where lives can unfold in softness, where endings arrive like the closing of a book rather than the shattering of a door. It is a reminder that peace exists, even in worlds of chaos, that dreams can be as real as waking hours, and that somewhere, perhaps just beyond the edge of our own blankets, lies a hidden kingdom, stitched from the comfort of sleep. When we close our eyes, we might walk there too, through quiet streets, padded with cushions, under skies painted with soft light, past the families and dreamers who live their quiet lives, unaware that they are part of something so rare. And if we are lucky, perhaps we will carry back with us a fragment of that peace, folded neatly into the corners of our hearts, just as Finn did. And so the Pillow Kingdom drifts back into silence, resting in its secret place. We turn from its quilted gates with calm hearts, knowing that though its details fade, its feeling remains. In the story of Ooo, it will always stand as one of those silent corners waiting for us in memory, a gentle kingdom, hidden in pillows, where eternity feels like a single night, and a single night feels like eternity. From the soft folds of pillows, our path now shifts into something entirely different, where the Pillow Kingdom wrapped us in fabric and warmth. The desert of wonders greets us with openness and silence, a place where every horizon is wide, yet nothing moves but the wind. Adventure Time gave us only glimpses of this desert, a few frames here, a mention there, scattered like grains of sand across the series. And yet those glimpses were enough to leave us wondering, for deserts in myth and story are never empty. They are thresholds, spaces where silence hides secrets, and where travelers often meet visions. In Ooo, the desert of wonders feels like one of these places, ancient and untold. Picture it now. The sun above, large and pale, pressing its heat across rolling dunes. The sky a faded blue, almost white in its brightness. The ground stretches endlessly, golden waves shifting in patterns too vast for the eye to hold. No forests here, no rivers, no castles of candy or kingdoms of ice. Only silence, punctuated by the occasional cry of a bird circling overhead, or the rattle of sand slipping down a dune. But scattered among the dunes are fragments, crumbling walls half buried in sand, broken statues, their features worn away by centuries of wind, bits of glass catching the sunlight and flashing like jewels, though they are nothing more than shards. These fragments hint at something long gone, a civilization that once thrived here, leaving behind ruins now softened by time. We are left to ask, who were they, and what happened to them? Some believe the Desert of Wonders holds remnants of the world before the Mushroom War. Its silence could be covering the scars of weapons long since lost, technologies swallowed by sand. Others see in it the bones of a much older people, perhaps the ones who first walked Ooo before the chaos of magic and machines. The truth, as with many corners of the land, is never revealed. Instead, we are left with suggestion. And suggestion, when paired with silence, becomes a canvas for imagination. If we walk deeper into the desert, we might find strange landmarks rising against the horizon. Towers shaped not from stone, but from fused glass, melted long ago in unimaginable heat. canyons carved into the sand, their walls etched with markings we cannot read. Even the air itself feels enchanted, bending light into mirages that shimmer in the distance. Perhaps these mirages are only tricks of heat, but perhaps they are something more. In Ooo, the line between illusion and reality is never certain. The desert invites us to pause and listen. In the stillness, one can almost hear echoes of what once was, the laughter of a marketplace long buried, the chanting of priests in forgotten temples, the distant hum of machines that once roared across the sands. Each gust of wind feels like the voice of history itself, erasing and reshaping at the same time. It is no accident that deserts across mythologies of our own world are seen as places of vision. To wander them is to be stripped of distraction. Nothing but sand, sky, and the weight of your own thoughts. In that emptiness, revelations arise. For Finn and Jake, stumbling across the edges of such a place might not only test their endurance, but also their perception. What do you see when the world offers nothing to look at but yourself? The Desert of Wonders seems to ask this question without words. Perhaps that is why it lingers in the imagination. Because it feels like the quiet heart of Ooo, stripped of candy palaces, icy crowns, or flame-filled kingdoms. It is the land at its most bare, whispering of what came before and what might come after. And just like the Pillow Kingdom, its mystery is its greatest gift. By not telling us its story, Adventure Time allows us to wonder. We might imagine, if we wish, that the desert holds treasures buried beneath its dunes, old artifacts waiting for the right traveler to uncover them. Maybe even secrets of the Mushroom War itself hidden away under centuries of shifting sand. Or perhaps its wonder is not in what is hidden, but in what it offers to the mind, a vast silence in which stories can bloom freely. And in this way, the Desert of Wonders is more than a setting. It is a meditation on absence, on the way time erases but also preserves, on how history can vanish from the surface, yet still linger in fragments, waiting to be pieced together by those who come after. The desert does not tell us its tale outright. It leaves us with fragments, with silence, with horizons too wide to ever fully cross. And in that silence we find the wonder that gives the desert its name. From the soft folds of pillows, our path now shifts into something entirely different. Where the Pillow Kingdom wrapped us in fabric and warmth, the Desert of Wonders greets us with openness and silence, a place where every horizon is wide, yet nothing moves but the wind. Adventure Time gave us only glimpses of this desert. A few frames here, a mention there, scattered like grains of sand across the series. And yet those glimpses were enough to leave us wondering. For deserts in myth and story are never empty. They are thresholds, spaces where silence hides secrets, and where travelers often meet visions. In Ooo, the Desert of Wonders feels like one of these places, ancient and untold. Picture it now. The sun above, large and pale, pressing its heat across rolling dunes. The sky a faded blue, almost white in its brightness. The ground stretches endlessly, golden waves shifting in patterns too vast for the eye to hold. No forests here, no rivers, no castles of candy or kingdoms of ice. Only silence, punctuated by the occasional cry of a bird circling overhead, or the rattle of sand slipping down a dune. But scattered among the dunes are fragments. Crumbling walls half buried in sand. Broken statues, their features worn away by centuries of wind. Bits of glass, catching the sunlight, and flashing like jewels, though they are nothing more than shards. These fragments hint at something long gone, a civilization that once thrived here, leaving behind ruins now softened by time. We are left to ask, who were they, and what happened to them? Some believe the Desert of Wonders holds remnants of the world before the Mushroom War. Its silence could be covering the scars of weapons long since lost, technologies swallowed by sand. Others see in it the bones of a much older people, perhaps the ones who first walked Ooo before the chaos of magic and machines. The truth, as with many corners of this land, is never revealed. Instead, we are left with suggestion. And suggestion, when paired with silence, becomes a canvas for imagination. If we walk deeper into the desert, we might find strange landmarks rising against the horizon. Towers shaped not from stone, but from fused glass, melted long ago in unimaginable heat. Canyons carved into the sand, their walls etched with markings we cannot read. Even the air itself feels enchanted, bending light into mirages that shimmer in the distance. Perhaps these mirages are only tricks of heat, but perhaps they are something more. In Ooo, the line between illusion and reality is never certain. The desert invites us to pause and listen. In the stillness, one can almost hear echoes of what once was. The laughter of a marketplace long buried, the chanting of priests in forgotten temples, the distant hum of machines that once roared across the sands. Each gust of wind feels like the voice of history itself, erasing and reshaping at the same time. It is no accident that deserts, across mythologies of our own world, are seen as places of vision. To wander them is to be stripped of distraction. Nothing but sand, sky, and the weight of your own thoughts. In that emptiness, revelations arise. For Finn and Jake, stumbling across the edges of such a place might not only test their endurance, but also their perception. What do you see when the world offers nothing to look at but yourself? The Desert of Wonders seems to ask this question without words. Perhaps that is why it lingers in the imagination, because it feels like the quiet heart of Ooo, stripped of candy palaces, icy crowns, or flame-filled kingdoms. It is the land at its most bare, whispering of what came before and what might come after. And just like the Pillow Kingdom, its mystery is its greatest gift. By not telling us its story, Adventure Time allows us to wonder. We might imagine, if we wish, that the desert holds treasures buried beneath its dunes, old artifacts waiting for the right traveler to uncover them, maybe even secrets of the Mushroom War itself, hidden away under centuries of shifting sand. Or perhaps its wonder is not in what is hidden, but in what it offers to the mind, a vast silence in which stories can bloom freely. And in this way, the Desert of Wonders is more than a setting. It is a meditation on absence, on the way time erases but also preserves, on how history can vanish from the surface, yet still linger in fragments, waiting to be pieced together by those who come after. The desert does not tell us its tale outright. It leaves us with fragments, with silence, with horizons too wide to ever fully cross. And in that silence, we find the wonder that gives the desert its name. From the soft folds of pillows, our path now shifts into something entirely different. Where the Pillow Kingdom wrapped us in fabric and warmth, the Desert of Wonders greets us with openness and silence, a place where every horizon is wide, yet nothing moves but the wind. Adventure Time gave us only glimpses of this desert. A few frames here, a mention there, scattered like grains of sand across the series. And yet those glimpses were enough to leave us wondering. For deserts in myth and story are never empty. They are thresholds, spaces where silence hides secrets and where travelers often meet visions. In Ooo, the Desert of Wonders feels like one of these places, ancient and untold. Picture it now. The sun above, large and pale, pressing its heat across rolling dunes. The sky a faded blue, almost white in its brightness. The ground stretches endlessly, golden waves shifting in patterns too vast for the eye to hold. No forests here, no rivers, no castles of candy or kingdoms of ice. Only silence, punctuated by the occasional cry of a bird circling overhead, or the rattle of sand slipping down a dune. But scattered among the dunes are fragments, crumbling walls half buried in sand, broken statues, their features worn away by centuries of wind, bits of glass catching the sunlight and flashing like jewels, though they are nothing more than shards. These fragments hint at something long gone, a civilization that once thrived here, leaving behind ruins now softened by time. We are left to ask, who were they and what happened to them? Some believe the Desert of Wonders holds remnants of the world before the Mushroom War. Its silence could be covering the scars of weapons long since lost, technologies swallowed by sand. Others see in it the bones of a much older people, perhaps the ones who first walked Ooo before the chaos of magic and machines. The truth, as with many corners of this land, is never revealed. Instead, we are left with suggestion. And suggestion, when paired with silence, becomes a canvas for imagination. If we walk deeper into the desert, we might find strange landmarks rising against the horizon. Towers shaped not from stone, but from fused glass, melted long ago in unimaginable heat. Canyons carved into the sand, their walls etched with markings we cannot read. Even the air itself feels enchanted, bending light into mirages that shimmer in the distance. Perhaps these mirages are only tricks of heat, but perhaps they are something more. In Ooo, the line between illusion and reality is never certain. The desert invites us to pause and listen. In the stillness, one can almost hear echoes of what once was, the laughter of a marketplace long buried, the chanting of priests in forgotten temples, the distant hum of machines that once roared across the sands. Each gust of wind feels like the voice of history itself, erasing and reshaping at the same time. It is no accident that deserts across mythologies of our own world are seen as places of vision. To wander them is to be stripped of distraction. Nothing but sand, sky, and the weight of your own thoughts. In that emptiness, revelations arise. For Finn and Jake, stumbling across the edges of such a place might not only test their endurance, but also their perception. What do you see when the world offers nothing to look at but yourself? The Desert of Wonders seems to ask this question without words. Perhaps that is why it lingers in the imagination, because it feels like the quiet heart of Ooo, stripped of candy palaces, icy crowns, or flame-filled kingdoms. It is the land at its most bare, whispering of what came before and what might come after. And just like the Pillow Kingdom, its mystery is its greatest gift. By not telling us its story, Adventure Time allows us to wonder. We might imagine, if we wish, that the desert holds treasures buried beneath its dunes, old artifacts waiting for the right traveler to uncover them. Maybe even secrets of the Mushroom War itself, hidden away under centuries of shifting sand. Or perhaps its wonder is not in what is hidden, but in what it offers to the mind, a vast silence in which stories can bloom freely. And in this way, the Desert of Wonders is more than a setting. It is a meditation on absence, on the way time erases but also preserves, on how history can vanish from the surface, yet still linger in fragments, waiting to be pieced together by those who come after. The desert does not tell us its tale outright. It leaves us with fragments, with silence, with horizons too wide to ever fully cross. And in that silence, we find the wonder that gives the desert its name. To close our eyes and wander deeper into the Desert of Wonders is to surrender to its rhythm. The dunes rise and fall like waves, but unlike the ocean, They make no sound. Every step feels like it disappears into eternity, erased the moment it is taken. And yet that is part of the desert's gift. It reminds us that not everything we do leaves a mark. Some things are meant to be fleeting, passing away like footprints in the sand, leaving behind only the memory of the journey. If we imagine camping here for a night, the stillness becomes even more profound. As the sun sinks, the heat fades, and the desert shifts into cool blues and deep shadows. Stars reveal themselves in vast numbers, clearer than anywhere else in Ooo. Without cities, without kingdoms, without distraction, the desert sky becomes a tapestry of light. To sit in that silence beneath those stars is to feel both impossibly small and deeply connected to the world. Perhaps this is why deserts across mythologies are places of vision. In their emptiness, the universe reveals itself. And it is here that the Desert of Wonders touches something larger than ruins or history. It becomes a reflection of Ooo itself, a land shaped by catastrophe, yet still filled with beauty. The Mushroom War scarred the earth, but from those scars, new stories emerged. The Candy Kingdom grew, the Flame Kingdom burned, and countless smaller corners found their own forms of life. The desert, by contrast, remained what it had always been, empty, yet holding memory. In this way, it is both ancient and eternal, never changing, always waiting. Perhaps this is why Adventure Time never fully explained it. The creators knew that silence is part of its essence. To define the desert too clearly would strip it of its wonder. Instead, we were given only glimpses, enough to spark the imagination. A name, a horizon, a sense of endlessness. The rest was left to us. And so the Desert of Wonders becomes not just a place within the show, but a place within us, a canvas we can return to whenever we need to remember the power of silence. Think, too, of how the desert contrasts with the Pillow Kingdom we visited before. One was soft, intimate, filled with warmth and fabric. The other is vast, exposed, filled with emptiness and sand. Yet both teach similar lessons. Both show us that hidden corners of Ooo are not always about action or conquest. Sometimes they are about reflection, about learning the weight of time, the inevitability of change, the comfort of silence. In different ways, both the Pillow Kingdom and the Desert of Wonders whisper truths about life and memory, wrapped in imagery that lingers long after the episode fades. If we allow ourselves to walk the dunes one last time, we might find a fragment jutting from the sand, a piece of glass that once belonged to a window, a broken idol with features too eroded to name, a stretch of blackened stone where a fire once burned. Each piece feels like a voice, too faint to hear clearly, yet present enough to remind us of what was lost. And perhaps that is the true wonder of the desert. Not its beauty, though it is beautiful. Not its mystery, though it is mysterious. But the way it reminds us that even in absence there is presence. Even in silence there is story. For Ooo, a land that thrives on chaos and color, the Desert of Wonders is a rare still point. It is the reminder that beneath all the laughter and battles lies an earth that remembers. The desert is its memory, wide, quiet, patient. It does not need to be explained, it simply is. And in its being, it becomes one of the most haunting, most meditative corners of the land of Ooo. So as we leave the desert tonight, let us carry its silence with us, the warmth of its day, the coolness of its night, the stars that stretch forever above its horizon. Let us remember that wonders do not always shout. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they wait in places most people pass by. The Desert of Wonders is one of those places. Silent, infinite, filled with questions we may never answer, but rich with meaning nonetheless. And in that silence, In those unanswered questions lies the true heart of its name. A desert, yes, but also a place of wonders. From the desert's silence, we step now into another kind of stillness. No dunes, no wind, no shifting sands. Instead, we enter a place that feels endless in a different way. A place not bound to earth or sky, but suspended in the folds of reality itself. These are the corridors of the time room, the space where Prismo resides and where time itself seems to wander. The time room is already strange to imagine, let alone to describe. When we first see it, it feels like a dream apartment floating in nothingness. A single room where Prismo lounges on his couch, watching events unfold, granting wishes to those who find him. But around this cozy chamber stretch halls we barely glimpse, long endless corridors with doors upon doors, fading into infinite distance. They are never explored in detail, but their presence lingers like a question. What lies behind them, and who might be walking there when we are not looking? The corridors carry a sense of quiet that is different from the desert. Where the desert's silence is heavy and natural, the time room's silence feels intentional, as though it has been chosen. The air hums softly, like a faint vibration, reminding us that this place is not empty, but charged. Time itself seems to live in those halls, pressing against the walls, waiting just beyond the doors. If we imagine walking those corridors, the strangeness deepens. Each door looks alike at first, yet subtle differences catch the eye. One might be older, its wood cracked with age. Another might shimmer faintly, as if made of glass. Some doors seem too small, others impossibly tall, and still others shift in shape when you look away. The hall stretches on, but there is never an end in sight. It feels less like a place to be crossed and more like a place to be held in. The corridors themselves are the experience, not the destination. And so we begin to wonder, what are these doors for? Do they open into different points in time, each one a portal to another moment? Could some lead to the distant past, before the Mushroom War, while others open into possible futures yet to be decided? Or do they connect to alternate realities, the branching possibilities that Prismo keeps watch over? The show never tells us, leaving the corridors as one of Oo's most haunting mysteries. There is beauty in that lack of explanation, because the time room corridors invite us to think about time not as a straight line, but as an endless hall of possibilities, each door a moment, each turn an alternate choice. To walk the hall is to walk through the very shape of existence, seeing not one path but countless. In this way, the corridors become a meditation on the nature of time itself. Prismo, who spends his days within the space, seems casual about it. He treats the corridors as if they are simply there, part of the architecture of his strange existence. But perhaps this casualness hides something deeper. If one were to live surrounded by infinite doors, one would learn not to open them all, to glance at them only in passing, to accept that not every possibility must be explored. This restraint may be why Prismo is able to grant wishes. He understands that choice is sacred, that every open door changes the hall itself. For Finn and Jake, who briefly visit this realm, the corridors remain mostly unseen. But for us as dreamers, lying here in the quiet, they call out with a strange allure. What would it feel like to open just one? To step into a moment not meant for us? Would we be lost forever in a different thread of time? Or would the hall close gently behind us, erasing our footsteps as if we had never been there at all? The very thought gives the time room corridors a kind of reverence. They are not places for wandering lightly. They are places that remind us of the weight of every decision, of how each choice leads to another door and another, stretching into infinity. The silence of the hall is not emptiness, but anticipation, the pause before countless possibilities unfold. And if we step back, we can see how fitting it is that Adventure Time offered only glimpses. To fully map the corridors would be to strip them of their power. By leaving them shrouded, the show keeps their mystery alive. Just as the desert's silence invited us to imagine history, the time room's silence invites us to imagine possibility. Both are silent corners, but where one remembers the past, the other holds the future. If we think about the corridors as more than architecture, they begin to resemble the threads of time itself, each hallway stretching outward, lined with doorways that open into what could be, what has been, or what might never come to pass. In this way, the time room is not just the home for Prismo, but the very shape of possibility given form. When Finn or Jake step into it, they are not merely entering a space, they are stepping into the geometry of destiny itself. And what is destiny, if not the sum of choices unmade? We often think of time as a single stream, flowing forward with no bends, no forks. But the corridors tell us otherwise. They suggest that time is more like a mansion with endless rooms, each one a version of reality, waiting for someone to turn the knob and walk inside. The door you choose becomes your life. The doors you pass by remain closed, lingering as shadows of what could have been. This is what makes Prismo such an intriguing figure. He lives not only with awareness of the present, but surrounded by the hum of infinite potential. When he grants a wish, it is not magic in the way we usually understand it. It is an act of opening one of those doors and guiding someone through. He does not conjure something out of nothing. He shifts the traveler into another possible hallway, another outcome. His power lies not in creation, but in selection. He knows which doors to unlock and which to leave untouched. If we imagine walking beside Prismo in those corridors, we might notice how carefully he moves. He never rushes, never flings a door open at random. Perhaps he pauses, resting his hand lightly on the frame, listening to the hum behind it. Each door might sing with its own frequency, its own vibration of potential. He knows the melodies well. To him, each possibility is a song, and granting a wish is choosing the right harmony. For Finn, the corridors must have felt overwhelming. A boy used to forests, rivers, and kingdoms, suddenly confronted with a hall that holds eternity. To stand before even one of those doors would be to feel the enormity of choice pressing down on him. And yet the show does not linger on his reaction. It lets the mystery remain in the background, almost unnoticed, as though reminding us that the greatest truths are often the quietest. But what would happen if one walked too far into the corridors? If someone opened a door without guidance? The thought itself feels dangerous, and perhaps that is why the hall is left unexplored. It is not meant for mortals to wander freely. The doors are too heavy with consequence. A careless step might mean becoming lost in another world, another version of yourself, never to return. This sense of risk deepens the silence of the place. It is not empty silence, but silence born of reverence. We might also see the corridors as a metaphor for the act of storytelling itself. Adventure Time, like all stories, is built on choices, which paths to show, which moments to highlight, which lives to follow. The corridors remind us that for every story told, countless others remain behind closed doors. Every episode we watched was one door opened. Every mystery left unresolved was a door left shut. In this sense, the time room corridors are not only part of Oo's lore, but a reflection of the creative act itself. And then there is the question of who else has walked those halls. We know Prismo is their keeper, but surely others have brushed against them. Wishes in Ooo are rare but powerful. Each time someone asks for something impossible, a door must have swung open. Did the cosmic owl ever drift through, seeking visions in the rooms beyond? Did ancient wizards test their luck, stepping into timelines never meant for them? The corridors seem too vast for only one being to inhabit. Perhaps they are alive with echoes of every wish ever made, each traveler leaving a faint trace behind. What gives the corridors their haunting beauty is that we never see them clearly. Only glimpses, only hints. They exist, like the edges of a dream, present enough to stir us, but always retreating before we can focus. And maybe that is the point. Time itself is never fully seen. We feel it, we sense it, we are shaped by it, but we cannot step outside of it to look at its shape. The corridors allow us to imagine what that shape might be, long, endless, lined with choices. In this way, the time room corridors do not only belong to Ooo, they belong to us as well. Every listener lying in bed tonight knows what it feels like to stand before a door of choice, to wonder what would happen if you stepped one way instead of another. The corridors give form to that universal experience. They are the hallways of our own lives, stretching endlessly, lined with possibilities, most of which remain unopened. If the corridors of the time room are indeed the hallways of possibility, then Prismo himself becomes their custodian. His existence is unusual even within the strangeness of Ooo. He is not a being of flesh and blood, but the dream of an old man sleeping elsewhere in the multiverse. As long as that man sleeps, Prismo exists. As long as he exists, the corridors stretch onward. In this way, the hallways are tethered not only to time, but to the fragile act of dreaming. This is a delicate thought, because it suggests that reality itself may rest on something as ephemeral as a dream. If the dreamer stirs, the corridors vanish. If he slumbers, the doors remain. And yet this fragility does not weaken the corridors. Instead, it makes them more profound. They remind us that possibility, like dreaming, is always fragile. A door can open or close in an instant. A lifetime can shift because of a single choice. Time, too, rests on delicate hinges. The episode in which Prismo dies, only to be reborn through the restoration of his sleeping body, brings this fragility into focus. When his dream flickers out, the time room collapses. Its corridors vanish, leaving nothing but silence. And with that silence, an infinite number of possibilities vanish too. The image is haunting. All those doors gone in a blink. It is as if the universe itself lost its breath. Yet when Prismo is restored, the halls return, stretching endlessly once more. The fragility of possibility is matched by its resilience. Though it may vanish, it can also return. This delicate balance between fragility and resilience mirrors the way Adventure Time treats destiny. Characters often face moments that feel predetermined visions from the cosmic owl, prophecies whispered by ancient beings. Yet at the same time, they retain freedom. Finn and Jake are never fully bound to one outcome. They still choose, even when visions weigh heavily on them. The corridors embody this paradox. They hold doors that could be called destiny, but the act of opening them remains choice. The hall stretches infinitely, but each step is ours to take. If we imagine wandering deeper into these corridors, we might sense the weight of every life in Ooo pressing against the doors. Princess Bubblegum, the Ice King, Marceline, Flame Princess, each of them carrying choices that ripple outward, each of them tied to countless doors we will never see. The hall becomes less of a location and more of a map of lives, a quiet library of fates, bound not in books, but in doorways. And yet, despite this enormity, there is something oddly comforting in the corridors. They are not ominous or frightening. The silence is not cruel. It is calm, steady, almost patient. Time does not rush here. It waits. It does not demand answers. It allows them to unfold. For a show as vibrant and chaotic as Adventure Time, this patience feels unusual. But that is the essence of the time room. It is the pause beneath the noise, the still center where all things are possible, but none are forced. For Finn, who once struggled to accept the limits of his own life, the corridors must have carried a subtle lesson. Though he could not open every door, he could accept the hall's vastness. He could walk forward, knowing that behind every closed door were possibilities he did not need to chase. Perhaps that acceptance shaped the way he grew older, calmer, more reflective. The corridors taught him what the desert and the Pillow Kingdom had already whispered, that not everything needs to be grasped. Some mysteries are meant to remain closed, some doors left untouched. The imagery of doors is universal, and Adventure Time knew this well. Doors stand at the edge of transition. They are thresholds. To pass through one is to leave something behind and step into something new. By filling the time room with doors, the show gave us a perfect symbol for time itself, a series of thresholds we cross, sometimes knowingly, sometimes without realizing. The future is not one great door at the end of a hallway. It is countless small ones, each moment another step, another opening. And if we rest with this thought, the corridors become less intimidating and more familiar. They are not only the structure of Oooo's destiny, but the shape of our own lives. Every listener lying in bed tonight has their own corridor. Every choice made is a door opened. Every path left behind is a door closed. The beauty of the time room corridors is that they let us imagine that these doors do not vanish. They remain quietly waiting, part of an infinite hall of selves and stories. In this way, the corridors are not only cosmic, they are intimate. They hold within them both the grand sweep of the universe and the small tenderness of a single choice, a whisper said or unsaid, a hand held or released, a step taken or avoided. All of these are doors, just as significant as the great events of kingdoms or wars. The time room teaches us that destiny is not always written in thunder. Sometimes it is written in silence, in the quiet hinge of a door turning gently in its frame. To linger in the time room corridors is to linger in the presence of infinity. The hall does not curve or bend. It stretches forward, quiet and unbroken, doors fading into the distance like stars across a night sky. To walk, it would be to admit there is no end, only more possibilities, each one waiting with its silent hum. That thought could be overwhelming, but in the bedtime stillness of Oooo's lore, it feels oddly soothing. Infinity is not loud here. It is soft, patient, like a lullaby with no final verse. The presence of Prismo in this place grounds it, reminding us that even the infinite requires companionship. Without him, the corridors would feel too vast, too unreachable. But his gentle humor, his calm way of lounging on the couch, makes the enormity feel approachable. He lives with infinity and treats it like a roommate, something ordinary. This contrast is what makes the time room feel so unique, a cosmic realm that is also strangely cozy. The corridors stretch forever, yet at the heart of them sits a friend with a bowl of popcorn. Still, we cannot ignore the weight of those doors. Each one is a memory waiting to be recalled, or a life waiting to be lived. Perhaps behind some are moments we know well. Jake's laughter echoing through the treehouse, Marceline strumming her bass, Princess Bubblegum leaning over a glowing beaker, Perhaps behind others are futures that never came to pass, paths Finn might have walked had he chosen differently, or worlds where the mushroom war ended another way. The corridors do not judge these possibilities. They simply keep them. Silent, endless, unhurried. There is a strange comfort in that neutrality. For in our own lives, we often look back on doors we did not open and wonder what might have been. The corridors remind us that those paths still exist somewhere, preserved in the fabric of possibility. They are not lost. They remain, even if we never step through them. This softens the sting of regret. It allows us to imagine that nothing is ever truly gone, only resting behind a door in some quiet hall of time. The role of the cosmic owl deepens this sense of destiny and choice. His visions, given through dreams, are glimpses of doors we are meant to open. And yet even these visions can be resisted or reshaped, as Finn once did. The corridors, then, are not prisons of fate, but landscapes of choice. They show us that destiny and free will are not opposites. They are companions, walking side by side through the same hall. Adventure Time chose not to map these corridors fully, and that choice was wise. By leaving them unresolved, the show allowed them to remain living mysteries. They are not puzzles to be solved, but silences to be felt. The corridors belong to us as much as to Finn and Jake. They are a mirror, reflecting our own sense of possibility, our own endless hallways of memory and hope. Imagine, just for a moment, standing in one of those halls yourself. The air is still, humming faintly with unseen energy. The floor glows softly beneath your feet, light without source, steady and calm. Doors stretch out to your left and right, each one silent, each one waiting. You do not need to open any of them. Simply standing there, knowing they exist, is enough. The wonder lies not in what you find, but in knowing that infinity is always around you, even when you cannot see it. This is the lesson of the time room corridors. That time is not a narrow thread, but a wide expanse. That destiny is not fixed, but woven. That choice is both fragile and eternal, each one a hinge turning softly in the silence of infinity. And that sometimes the most profound truths are found not in battles or quests, but in hallways no one dares to fully explore. When we leave the time room tonight, we do so with a sense of reverence. Its corridors remain behind us, doors closed, halls stretching on. We do not need to see what lies within. It is enough to know they are there, waiting quietly, shaping the very rhythm of existence. In the story of Ooo, they will always stand as one of its most mysterious, silent corners, infinite, patient, and tender in their quiet power. And so we drift forward, carrying with us the hush of the halls, the calm of Prismo's companionship, and the endless reminder that time is not a single path, but a vast, quilted corridor of doors. Each of us walks it in our own way. Each of us leaves some doors unopened. And in that silence, in that infinite hall, lies the wonder of life itself. From the corridors of time, our path drifts downward into shadow. The doors fade away. The hum of possibility softens, and we find ourselves in a realm much more physical, yet no less mysterious. A place not of fabric or sand, not of infinity, but of webs spun thick across stone. This is the maze of giant spiders. Adventure Time did not linger long here. We caught glimpses of dark caverns threaded with silk, of shadowy corners where chittering legs stirred. Yet even in those brief appearances, the maze left an impression. It felt older than the kingdom of Ooo, older even than the scars of the Mushroom War. Something about its silence suggested that it had always been there, waiting beneath the world, spun patiently across generations. Imagine stepping into it now. The air is heavy and cool, carrying the faint scent of dust and stone. Every wall is draped with webbing, thick cords that glisten faintly in the dim light. The floor is uneven, stone-cracked and worn by time, though much of it is hidden beneath layers of silk. The further you go, the quieter it becomes. Even footsteps seem muffled by the webs, as though the maze itself does not want intruders to be heard. The spiders that inhabit this place are not simple creatures. Some are small, skittering across the walls like shadows. Others are massive, their legs arching across entire corridors, their bodies glistening with strange patterns. Some are hostile, lunging at travelers with fangs bared. Others, surprisingly, are gentle, weaving patiently, almost unaware of those who pass. The maze does not paint spiders as one thing or another. It shows them as a society, vast and varied, bound together by their endless weaving. What does it mean to weave such a maze? Perhaps it is their home, passed down through generations, every thread a mark of survival. Or perhaps it is more than home. Perhaps it is a kind of archive, a living record of all that has happened in Ooo. Every strand of silk could be thought of as a story, stretched across time, catching fragments of history like flies in a web. Those who wander the maze might be brushing against memories, not just threads. For Finn and Jake, entering such a place meant danger. The spiders they met could be fierce, guarding their territory with venom and strength. Yet even in the midst of that danger, there was something strangely reverent about the maze. It was not just a nest, not just a lair. It felt like a labyrinth designed with purpose, though its purpose was never explained. And in that absence, the imagination wanders freely. Perhaps the maze stretches further than anyone knows, tunneling beneath kingdoms, rivers, even mountains. Perhaps its threads reach places no one has ever seen, binding together the unseen corners of Ooo. If that were true, then the spiders are not merely inhabitants, but caretakers of a structure far larger than themselves. A structure that holds the land together in silence, preventing it from unraveling completely. There is also something symbolic in the image of the web itself. Webs are connections. They link point to point, strand to strand, until the whole becomes something greater than its parts. In the maze of giant spiders, that symbolism feels alive. The maze reminds us that all things are connected, even in darkness, that the stories of Ooo are not isolated, but woven together in a pattern too large for any one traveler to see. And yet, webs are also traps. They hold as much as they connect. To enter the maze is to risk being caught, stuck in threads too strong to break. This duality is part of what makes the maze of giant spiders so haunting. It is both connection and prison, archive and snare. It holds the beauty of craftsmanship and the terror of entrapment. Like so many silent corners of Ooo, it resists easy definition. What might lie at the center of this maze? We were never shown, and perhaps that is for the best. The imagination is free to wander, picturing chambers vast as cathedrals, where ancient spider matriarchs sit in stillness, spinning webs that shimmer like constellations. Or perhaps the center is not a single place at all, but an endless weaving, no beginning, no end. The maze may not be meant to be solved, only to be experienced, to remind travelers of the power and mystery of what lies beneath the surface. If we pause inside the maze and listen carefully, the silence is not complete. There are faint sounds woven to the stillness. The slow creak of silk tightening as spiders reinforce their threads. The whisper of many legs moving across stone. The occasional snap of a web as something unseen struggles in its grip. These sounds echo strangely in the maze, reverberating through the tunnels as though the structure itself is alive. It feels less like a collection of corridors and more like a single, vast organism, breathing slowly, expanding and contracting in rhythm with the countless spiders who tend it. The existence of such a place invites us to wonder if the spiders of Ooo are more than simple creatures. The scale of their weaving suggests intelligence, patience, and purpose. To maintain such a labyrinth would take centuries, perhaps millennia, passed down from one generation to the next. The maze is their heritage, a creation that has outlasted kingdoms above. It may even be older than the Candy Kingdom or the Fire Kingdom, older than the shattered remnants of the Mushroom War. In its silence, the maze may hold one of the most ancient cultures in all of Ooo. Imagine what stories might be told within it. Perhaps there are spider elders who remember when the surface world was young, their memories carried in silk passed down through families. Each new strand could serve not only as shelter, but as record, holding vibrations of history within it. Some webs, when plucked, might resonate with tales of the past battles fought, storms endured, moments long forgotten by those above. In this way, the maze becomes an archive, storing memory not in books or monuments, but in threads, delicate yet enduring. We might think of the spider's weaving as a language of its own, every strand placed with intention, every knot and pattern carrying meaning. To us, it is only tangled silk, but to them it may be a script, a map, a story. Finn and Jake, moving through the maze, would not have been able to read it, but perhaps the spiders around them were speaking constantly, holding conversations in the shifting of strands. In this sense, the maze itself could be thought of as a great book, written not with ink but with silk, telling stories that no outsider can ever fully understand. The symbolism of the web deepens when we reflect on Oo's larger mysteries. Just as the time room corridors stretched infinitely with doors of possibility, the maze of giant spiders stretches infinitely with threads of connection. Both are labyrinths, but where the corridors are tied to time and destiny, the spider maze is tied to memory and interconnection. One shows us futures, the other binds together past and present. They mirror one another quietly, two different but complementary silent corners. And yet webs are not only symbols of memory, they are also symbols of fate. In many mythologies of our own world, spiders are associated with weaving destiny itself. Every life a thread, every event a knot, the entire world a web held together by invisible strands. The maze of giant spiders seems to carry this symbolism into Ooo. It suggests that even the chaos of the land is bound together by unseen connections. The maze reminds us that nothing happens in isolation. Every action, every choice, every story is caught in the threads of something larger. To enter the maze, then, is to confront this truth directly. Travelers become part of the web, whether they wish to or not. The silk clings to them, catches on their clothes, marks them as participants in the structure. Even if they escape, some threads remain, unseen but unbroken, tying them back to the maze. In this way, the spiders are not only keepers of their own labyrinth, but keepers of all who enter it. Once you step inside, you are part of its story. There is also a strange reverence in the idea that the maze may never end. Perhaps it stretches beneath every part of Ooo, an underground world that links all the kingdoms above. If this is true, then the spiders are witnesses to everything. They feel the tremors of battles, the footsteps of armies, the laughter of children in villages above. The vibrations travel downward, caught by their webs, stored as subtle memories in the silk. The maze becomes not only an archive of its own people, but of the entire world. When we think of the spiders themselves, it is tempting to see only fear, their size, their venom, their silent movements. Yet when viewed in the calm light of the maze, they seem more like monks than monsters, patient, disciplined, devoted to their weaving. Their lives may be short compared to the span of their labyrinth, but each contributes a strand, a piece of something greater. In this way, they embody a lesson that fits beautifully into the quiet philosophy of Adventure Time, that even the smallest action, the smallest thread, becomes part of a tapestry larger than we can see. If we travel deeper into the maze, the sense of unease grows stronger. The threads become thicker, stretching not only across the walls but overhead, forming ceilings that block out what little light trickled down before. The passages narrow, forcing travelers to brush against silk no matter how carefully they move. Each touch vibrates faintly, sending whispers of their presence into the darkness. It is here, more than anywhere, that the maze reveals its dual nature. For while it binds and connects, it also captures and restrains. This tension between connection and entrapment is what makes the maze of giant spiders so haunting. A web can be a home, but it can also be a trap. It can preserve memory, but it can also immobilize life. To enter the maze is to enter that paradox. Every step forward is both a discovery and a risk. To reach the heart of the labyrinth may mean to learn something profound, but it may also mean never escaping. The maze holds both possibilities in its silence. We might wonder then what lies at the very center of this vast structure. The show never told us, leaving the imagination free to wander. Perhaps there is a throne woven of silk, where an ancient matriarch sits, her body so vast that her legs stretch into tunnels like pillars. Around her, generations of spiders might gather, weaving and chanting in rhythms too subtle for outsiders to hear. Or perhaps the center is not a place at all, but an endless knot, a web so dense it has no beginning or end, a living monument to the persistence of connection. The idea of such a center ties into a deeper symbolism. In many traditions, labyrinths are seen as journeys of transformation. To walk into one is to move inward, confronting fears and truths hidden in shadow. To find the center is to reach a kind of revelation. The maze of giant spiders seems to carry this weight. Its center, whatever it may be, could represent the hidden heart of Ooo itself, a reminder that beneath the surface of kingdoms and quests lies something older, more tangled, and more essential. Of course, the presence of spiders gives this symbolism a darker edge. For many, spiders are creatures of fear, their movements uncanny, their webs unsettling. To confront them is to confront that fear directly. The maze, then, might not only represent connection and history, but the shadows we prefer not to face. Its silence holds not only memory, but dread. By weaving these two together, the maze becomes a mirror of Oo's deeper truths. The beauty and terror often share the same web. And yet even in this fear, there is a kind of peace. The spiders do not weave out of malice. They weave because it is their nature, their way of existing. The maze is not a prison designed for cruelty, but a home created through patience. In this way, the spiders remind us that fear often arises not from malice, but from misunderstanding. What seems frightening in shadow might simply be different, unknown. The maze asks us to slow down, to see beyond the surface of our fear, and to recognize the quiet persistence of life in forms unfamiliar to us. This is part of what makes the maze of giant spiders such a fitting, silent corner of Ooo. It holds truths that are uncomfortable but necessary. It tells us that the world is not made only of softness and warmth, but also of shadow and entanglement. That memory can preserve but also ensnare. That connections can support, but they can also hold us too tightly. To step into the maze is to acknowledge these truths, even if only for a moment. We can also imagine how the maze interacts with the rest of Ooo. Perhaps its tunnels stretch beneath the Candy Kingdom, its threads brushing faintly against the foundations of Peppermint Butler's arcane rituals. Perhaps they run under the Fire Kingdom, where the heat of the lava hardens silk into crystal-like strands. Perhaps some of its webs even reach the Ice Kingdom, freezing into brittle, glassy lines that crack in the cold. In this way, the maze becomes an unseen network, touching all the known lands without ever revealing itself fully. If so, then the spiders are not only hidden dwellers, but silent observers of everything. From beneath, they feel the tremors of battles, the songs of celebrations, the grief of losses. All of these vibrations travel down, absorbed by the web. In silence, the spiders listen. In patience, they record. Their labyrinth is not just a nest, but a reflection of Oo's entire heartbeat, caught and remembered in silk. And when we reflect on this, the maze begins to feel less like a place of fear and more like a sacred space, a cathedral without light, where threads replace stained glass and silence replaces song. To enter it is to enter a world that has been present all along, beneath our feet, weaving quietly while the surface world rages and rebuilds. It reminds us that every land has its undercurrents, every story its hidden layers. The maze is one of Oo's deepest layers, holding mysteries we may never fully understand. To leave the maze of giant spiders is not as simple as turning back the way you came. The corridors shift. The threads seem to rearrange themselves when you are not looking, and the path outward feels as elusive as the path in. Perhaps this is by design. A labyrinth is never meant to be only a passageway. It is meant to change the traveler. When one steps into the maze, they do not exit the same as they entered. The web clings to them in ways both visible and unseen, reminding them that the experience cannot be forgotten, no matter how far they walk away. And what is it that lingers? For some, it may be fear, the memory of skittering legs in the dark, the sensation of being watched from shadowed corners. For others, it may be awe, the sight of vast chambers draped in silk that shimmered like constellations, the realization that an entire culture exists beneath the earth, weaving its story silently while the world above rushes by. For all who leave, though, one truth remains. The maze is not just a place of spiders. It is a mirror of Ooo itself, tangled and vast, frightening and beautiful at once. In the mythology of Adventure Time, webs can be read as symbols of interconnectedness. Every character, every choice, every kingdom is tied together by invisible threads. The spiders make this truth literal. Their labyrinth stretches under the land, binding together places that might otherwise seem isolated. The Candy Kingdom and the Fire Kingdom, the ruins of the Mushroom War, and the still-living forests, all are caught in the same web, trembling faintly with every shift and every story. The maze shows us that nothing in Ooo is truly separate. All things belong to the same pattern. And yet the web also warns us of entrapment. Connections can comfort, but they can also hold us too tightly. To be caught in the maze is to lose freedom, to be bound by threads too strong to escape. This dual meaning fits perfectly with the themes of Ooo, where every power comes with risk, every gift with a shadow. The maze of giant spiders embodies this truth in silence, teaching it not through words, but through its very structure. If we compare this silent corner with the others we have explored, the parallels deepen. The Pillow Kingdom showed us the fleeting nature of comfort and time. The Desert of Wonders reminded us of absence and memory. The time room corridors reflected possibility and destiny. Now, the maze of giant spiders brings us to interconnection, entrapment, and the quiet endurance of life in shadow. Each place is different, yet together they form a circle of wisdom. Each teaches us something about time, memory, and the hidden truths that shape Ooo. It is tempting to imagine that the spiders themselves are aware of this role, that they know their weaving echoes larger truths, and that they keep their silence deliberately, letting the surface world forget them while they continue their work below. Perhaps, in their own way, they are guardians of balance, not through battle or rule, but through patience. By keeping their labyrinth alive, they keep Ooo connected, whether the people above realize it or not. And so when we think of the maze of giant spiders, we should not think only of fear. We should think of persistence. We should think of patience, of the way threads, though fragile, can hold the weight of worlds when woven together. The maze is not an enemy to be defeated, but a teacher to be remembered. It whispers of connection, of entanglement, of the beauty and the risk of belonging. Leaving the maze, we may carry a thread with us, not physical silk, but a thread of memory, a reminder that we are always part of something larger. Just as every strand in the labyrinth contributes to its pattern, so too do our choices contribute to the pattern of life in Ooo and beyond. This is the quiet gift of the maze, not terror, not triumph, but awareness. And in this awareness, the maze of giant spiders finds its place among the silent corners of Ooo. It does not shine like the Candy Kingdom, or blaze like the Fire Kingdom. It does not sprawl like the desert, or unfold like the corridors of time. It rests in shadow, patient, unchanging, waiting. A place of silk and silence, where the lessons of connection and entrapment weave together into something timeless. As we drift away from its halls tonight, we do so slowly, carrying the weight of its quiet. The threads stretch on behind us, unseen but never gone, binding together all the stories of Ooo, holding them in place. And though we may never return, the memory of the maze lingers a labyrinth beneath the world, a web beneath the story, one of the most haunting and beautiful silent corners of all. From the dark weaving of the spider maze, our path now drifts outward into air and sky. The heaviness of webs falls away, replaced by the hush of open spaces and quiet waters. Ooo is full of grand kingdoms and famous landmarks, yet scattered across its edges are places barely seen, places that flicker into view for a moment and then are gone. These are the forgotten isles and hidden valleys, corners of the land that seem to exist only in passing, yet stir the imagination like faint echoes of dreams. The forgotten isles are some of the most tantalizing. Little pieces of land scattered across oceans, glimpsed briefly in the distance or shown in passing during a journey. Some are lush, with palm trees swaying gently in the wind. Others are rocky, rising out of the waves like the backs of ancient beasts. Still others are little more than sandbars, lonely stretches of beach where no one seems to live, yet where stories might easily take root. Adventure Time never told us what lay upon these islands, but the silence itself makes them feel alive. It is easy to imagine entire communities thriving there, hidden from the conflicts of the mainland. Perhaps small villages built from driftwood and shells where people live simply, fishing in the quiet waters and watching the stars without worry of wars or magic. Or perhaps the islands hold ruins, remnants of civilizations that rose and fell long before Oo's current kingdoms. Every stone wall, every overgrown tower could tell of lives we never knew, lives swallowed by sea and time. The oceans themselves are full of mystery in Ooo, and so the forgotten isles carry an extra weight. To sail to them would be to leave behind the familiar world and step into something both beautiful and uncertain. The distance across the waves feels like a veil, separating these places from the stories we know. To glimpse them is to be reminded that Ooo is larger than what the show revealed, that beyond every horizon lies another story, another people, another corner of the map waiting quietly, unnamed. And then there are the hidden valleys. Unlike the islands, they do not rest apart in the sea, but are tucked quietly into the folds of the land. Adventure Time shows us mountains and forests, deserts and plains, but now and then, between the grand places, we catch sight of smaller valleys, pockets of green or the shadow where life seems to go on unnoticed. Some are filled with wildflowers and birdsong, places of startling beauty untouched by kingdoms. Others are darker, lined with jagged rocks or mist, where secrets might linger unseen. A hidden valley holds a special kind of mystery. To step into one feels like entering a world apart, sheltered by ridges on all sides. Sound changes there, softened by the walls of stone. Light drifts differently, filtered through narrow openings above. These valleys are sanctuaries, places where time seems slower, where travelers might pause and feel the weight of the world lessen. Yet they are also places where secrets can dwell. Caves may open in their depths, or ruins might lie crumbled at their heart, covered by vines no one has touched in centuries. What makes these isles and valleys so compelling is not what we know, but what we do not. They are glimpsed and then forgotten, mentioned but never explained. And in that absence, imagination thrives. Each one could hold an entire story, a kingdom hidden from sight, a relic of the mushroom war left behind, a creature slumbering undisturbed. They remind us that Ooo, for all its adventures and revelations, will always be larger than what we are shown. The map is never finished. The story is never complete. There will always be quiet corners waiting, just beyond reach. If we linger on the thought of the forgotten isles, we can imagine them not as empty spaces, but as quiet homes. Perhaps generations of people settled there long ago, building simple dwellings along the shorelines. Their lives would be steady and unhurried, shaped more by tides and seasons than by kingdoms or rulers. They might not know of the Candy Kingdom, the Fire Kingdom, or the battles that shift the balance of Ooo. Instead, they would know the rhythm of the waves, the flight of seabirds, and the constellations reflected across water on clear nights. These imagined islanders may have their own traditions, passed down like whispered lullabies, songs sung at dusk as lanterns are lit, rituals of gratitude for the sea, woven into fishing nets and shells strung together in doorways. Perhaps they tell their children stories of the mainland, not from experience, but from myths carried by wandering sailors who once found their shores. To them, the rest of Ooo might feel like a legend, distant and unreal, while their own island world is the only reality they need. Not every isle, though, must be home to the living. Some may hold ruins instead, remnants of lives once lived but now vanished. Imagine broken walls half buried in sand, their stones smoothed by the waves. Temples where vines now twist through doorways, their carvings fading into silence. A lone statue, its features weathered beyond recognition, staring eternally across the sea. These ruins could be fragments of civilizations lost in the Mushroom War, or perhaps even older cultures that thrived long before magic and chaos remade the land. To stand among them would be to stand in the company of ghosts, listening for stories the waves will not tell. There might also be isles that are more dreamlike, touched by the strangeness that runs through Ooo, Forests where trees grow in spirals, their branches weaving into impossible patterns. Beaches where glassy shards sparkle like jewels, remnants of ancient fires or fallen stars. Caves where light glows softly from stones, as though the earth itself remembers and keeps watch. These islands may not be inhabited in the way we understand, but they live nonetheless. They breathe with mystery, reminding us that not every home needs walls or people to feel alive. Turning inward to the hidden valleys, we can imagine similar possibilities. Some valleys might be sanctuaries for creatures who avoid the kingdoms above. Herds of gentle beasts, grazing unseen, their calls echoing softly against the stone. Birds nesting in high cliffs, their songs filling the air at dawn and dusk. Even small communities of people might live there, their villages concealed by the natural walls of the land. Hidden from maps and conflicts, they might have lived for centuries in peace, their existence unknown to those who pass overhead. Other valleys might be places of solitude rather than settlement. Travelers could stumble upon them while wandering, drawn by streams that cut through their heart, or by the sudden burst of flowers blooming in an otherwise barren landscape. Such valleys feel like gifts, small corners where the world offers unexpected beauty. To rest there would be to feel that Ooo itself was cradling you for a moment, sheltering you from the chaos beyond the ridges. And then there are valleys with shadows. Mist might cling to them, never fully lifting, giving the impression that something sleeps beneath. Strange stones might rise from their centers, carved with markings too faint to decipher. Perhaps such valleys once held rituals, or perhaps they were battlefields long ago, now softened by time but never entirely forgotten. They carry the same ambiguity as the island's glimpses of history without explanation, invitations to wonder. What unites both the isles and valleys is their quietness. They do not shout their stories. They do not demand attention. They linger at the edges, content to be overlooked. And in their silence, they feel more real, more enduring. Because in any world, it is often the quiet places, untouched and unnoticed, that last the longest. If we let our minds drift across these isles and valleys, a pattern begins to emerge. They are not simply gaps in the story, not oversights or unfinished details. They are part of Oo's rhythm. For every kingdom crowned with rulers and conflicts, there must be places where no such crowns exist. For every loud and brightly colored adventure, there must be quiet landscapes, waiting patiently in the background. The forgotten isles and hidden valleys carry this balance. They remind us that Ooo is not only shaped by what is seen, but also by what is left unseen. These places also speak to the resilience of life. In a world reshaped by the Mushroom War, where ruins and reminders of destruction linger everywhere, the isles and valleys suggest that life found ways to continue quietly. If whole kingdoms were lost, new communities may have formed in secluded corners. If the mainland was scarred, islands across the ocean may have endured untouched. If battles raged across plains and deserts, valleys might have hidden away, cradling flowers, streams, and creatures safe from the chaos. They are living reminders that survival does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. There is a symbolic weight in the very idea of a hidden valley. To descend into one is to step into a sheltered world, apart from the noise above. It feels like entering the heart of the earth, a space carved out for reflection. In story, valleys often represent protection, pause, or hidden knowledge. In Ooo, they carry this same resonance. They invite us to imagine what truths or treasures might be preserved in their quiet depths, waiting for someone to stumble upon them. The Forgotten Isles carry their own symbolism. Islands across countless myths are places of exile, of retreat, or of revelation. To live on an island is to be separated from the world, and in that separation, truths often come to light. In Ooo, the Isles seem to hold the same energy. They suggest stories unfolding far from the kingdoms we know, stories shaped by isolation, endurance, and the sea. Each island glimpsed but unexplored becomes a reminder that Oo's story stretches outward beyond any map. Adventure Time rarely returned to these places, and that choice feels deliberate. By leaving them unresolved, the show allowed them to remain ours to imagine. A single shot of an island, a passing glimpse of a valley, became an invitation. What lives there? Who remembers it? What stories might unfold if we lingered? In this way, the Forgotten Corners became some of the most personal spaces in the series. Each viewer could fill them differently. Each dreamer could imagine their own communities, their own ruins, their own mysteries. They also highlight something essential about Ooo, that the world is larger than the characters we follow. Finn and Jake are at the heart of the story, but they are not the whole of it. Beyond their adventures lies a living world, full of lives they will never meet, corners they will never enter. The Forgotten Isles and hidden valleys remind us that the story continues beyond the edges of the frame. For every kingdom named, there are others nameless. For every history told, there are others left untold. This absence is not a flaw, but a gift. In storytelling, what is left unsaid can be as powerful as what is spoken. By leaving these corners untouched, Adventure Time gave us spaces to rest, to wonder, to breathe. The isles and valleys are like pauses in music, silences that give shape to the sound. They are the negative space of Oo's map, shaping the known lands by surrounding them with mystery. In their silence, these places also echo the themes of memory that run throughout the show, just as the Desert of Wonders preserved ruins beneath sand, and the Spider Maze preserved histories in silk. The isles and valleys preserve stories by withholding them. Their memory is not loud or obvious. It is subtle, carried in a glimpse of shoreline, a shadowed valley floor, a hint of something forgotten. And perhaps that is truer to life than any detailed history. For in our own world, too, countless lives and stories slip by unnoticed, leaving only traces in the landscape. Seen this way, the Forgotten Isles and hidden valleys are more than background. They are reminders of how much is always left unseen, that even in a land as magical and chaotic as Ooo, there will always be more beyond the horizon, more beneath the ridges, more waiting in silence. They embody the beauty of the unresolved, showing us that mystery itself can be a form of truth. To rest our thoughts upon these quiet isles and valleys is to notice the way they soften the story of Ooo. So much of the land's history is loud. Battles between kingdoms, quests filled with peril, cosmic entities shaping the flow of time. The isles and valleys, by contrast, are gentle counterpoints. They do not announce themselves. They do not claim to be important. And yet, in their stillness, they remind us that quiet places matter too. They are sanctuaries within a world often caught between chaos and survival. It is not difficult to picture a traveler stumbling upon one of these valleys after days of wandering. The cliffs part, the land dips, and suddenly the world changes. Streams sparkle between rocks, trees rise protectively overhead, and the air feels lighter, safer. In such a valley, a weary soul might stop, build a fire, and for the first time in weeks, feel at peace. These hidden places are not only backdrops. They are havens, reminders that even in a fractured world, rest can be found. The same is true of the isles. To wash ashore on a forgotten island is to discover a new chance. There may be fruit trees waiting or clear springs tucked among the rocks. The ocean becomes both barrier and guardian, shielding the island from intrusion. Life there would unfold more slowly, shaped by tides and skies rather than wars. These imagined islands, with their quiet rhythms, embody a dream at the heart of Adventure Time. The dream of living gently, away from noise, held by nature itself. Yet these sanctuaries also carry a sense of melancholy. For if they are forgotten, it means their stories are not told. Their communities remain invisible, their ruins unremembered. The silence that protects them also erases them. This duality is what gives the isles and valleys their emotional resonance. They are both peaceful and lonely, both alive and overlooked, both essential and invisible. They embody the paradox of Ooo itself, a land where wonder and loss are always intertwined. The beauty of these corners is that they never resolve into certainty. They remain glimpses, a shoreline seen in the distance, a valley passed quickly on the way to somewhere else, a name mentioned once and never again, and in that incompleteness they feel endless. Because what is left untold can never be exhausted. The isles and valleys will always hold more than we can imagine. They are inexhaustible sources of wonder, precisely because they remain silent. Symbolically, they remind us of the parts of ourselves that are often overlooked, just as the grand kingdoms of Ooo represent the loudest parts of life: ambition, conflict, creation. The forgotten isles and valleys reflect the quieter parts: memory, rest, hidden strength. They whisper that not everything needs to be seen to matter, that some of the most important truths are carried quietly, without recognition, in corners no one remembers to look. In this sense, the isles and valleys complete the circle of silent corners we have explored so far. The Pillow Kingdom showed us the fleeting comfort of dreams. The Desert of Wonders revealed the beauty of absence and ruin. The time room corridors stretched infinite with possibility. The maze of giant spiders bound stories together in shadow. And now the forgotten isles and valleys show us the sanctuaries scattered across Ooo, the quiet places where life continues unnoticed. Each corner different, yet all carrying the same soft wisdom, that silence itself is a story. As we leave these landscapes behind, we do so with a sense of gratitude. They do not need to be fully known to be meaningful. Their gift lies in their openness, their invitation to imagine. They remind us that Ooo, like our own world, is too large to ever be fully mapped, too full of stories to ever be fully told. And that is a comfort, for mystery itself can be a place of rest. The forgotten isles and hidden valleys remain where they are, scattered across oceans and tucked between mountains, untouched by kings and wars. They will continue long after other stories fade, waiting in silence. And though the show moved on, we can always return to them in our minds, finding in their quiet an echo of something universal. The beauty of places unseen, the importance of what endures beyond memory, and the peace of knowing that, even in chaos, some corners of the world remain still. From the hidden valleys and distant isles, we turn now to something even quieter. Not a kingdom or a maze, not even a ruin half buried in sand. This final silent corner is less a place and more a presence. It is what fills the gaps, what lingers at the edges of every story. These are the spaces between. Ooo, as we know it, is vibrant and full. Candy people bustle in bright towns. Fire burns in caverns of flame. Ice crowns mountains, forests stretch endlessly, and seas crash against rocky shores. Yet for every place we know, there are stretches of land in between that pass, almost unnoticed, Plains where nothing stirs but the grass bending in the wind. Mountains unnamed, their peaks lost in cloud. Empty skies where no bird flies, no kingdom rises. These spaces form the canvas upon which Oo's brighter stories are painted, and though we rarely focus on them, they are always there, surrounding everything. Think of the quiet fields that Finn and Jake sometimes walk across in between their grand adventures. The shots where they are just silhouettes against the horizon, their laughter carried by wind across empty ground. Those fields tell their own story, one of distance, one of waiting. They remind us that even heroes spend most of their lives not in battles or quests, but in the gentle passage of space and time. The spaces between hold those pauses, those breaths, those stretches of silence. Or consider the skies above Ooo. We often look at them only when something falls from them, a comet, a spaceship, a dream creature from beyond. Yet most of the time they are simply there, stretching endlessly in pale blue or soft twilight. The skies, too, are spaces between. Vast and unclaimed, they cradle the kingdoms below, framing them with stillness. Without them, the noise of Ooo would feel too crowded, too unrelenting. The skies give room for the land to breathe. Even the background mountains, drawn faintly in so many scenes, are part of this silence. Their slopes are rarely explored, their names never given. Yet they rise quietly behind the stories, witnesses to everything, participants in nothing. They are the still faces of Ooo, standing where they always have, offering shape to the world without demanding attention. They embody the spaces between, the quiet companions to every louder tale. What makes these spaces so powerful is that they are undefined. They are not tied to characters or events. They are simply there, waiting. And in that waiting, they hold infinite possibility. Any of them could hide a forgotten village, a relic of the Mushroom War, a creature never yet seen. Or they could remain empty forever, carrying nothing but wind and sky. The uncertainty is what makes them beautiful. By not being claimed, they remain open, free, endless. The spaces between also hold a special role in storytelling. They are the pauses that give rhythm to the tale. Without them, Ooo would feel overwhelming, every inch crowded with magic and chaos. But the quiet plains, the silent skies, the unnamed ridges, they allow the story to breathe. They remind us that even in a world of constant wonder, silence has its place. It is the silence that makes the wonder shine brighter. To notice these spaces is to notice how much of Ooo remains unseen. For all the adventures Finn and Jake lived, there were countless more that never happened, countless places they never walked. The spaces between remind us that Ooo is not only the land we saw, but also the land we did not. That every world, no matter how colorful, contains emptiness. And that emptiness is not absence, but presence of another kind. A presence of rest, of mystery, of openness. If we look more closely at these stretches of emptiness, they begin to feel like more than background. They are not simply the places between adventures, but the threads that hold Ooo together. Without them, the kingdoms would not feel distinct. The journeys would not feel real. A quest across the Candy Kingdom to the Ice Kingdom matters because of the land between the miles walked, the nights camped beneath stars, the silence that allows distance to sink in. The spaces between are the connective tissue of Ooo, invisible yet essential. They also mirror the way memory works. When we recall our own lives, we tend to remember the bright moments, the victories, the heartbreaks, the turning points. Yet most of our days are made up of quieter things, commutes, walks, pauses, breaths. These moments rarely stand out, yet they are the ground upon which everything else rests. The same is true of Ooo. The grand battles and magical revelations may be what we remember, but they unfold against a backdrop of quiet fields, empty skies, and unnamed valleys. The spaces between remind us that the ordinary, the unmarked, is just as real and just as important. There is a kind of comfort in this. To know that Ooo, for all its strangeness, also has room for silence. That there are places where nothing dramatic happens, where the land simply exists. These spaces give the world weight. They make it feel whole, because a world without silence would not feel like a world at all. It would feel like a stage, every inch pressed into action. The spaces between keep Ooo from becoming only spectacle. They allow it to be a living place with stretches of quiet as natural as the noise. The imagination finds endless room in these quiet corners. When a background mountain is left unnamed, it becomes an invitation. Who lives there? What stories are hidden in its slopes? When a valley is shown only once, it lingers in the mind, sparking possibilities. By leaving so much undefined, Adventure Time entrusted part of its world to us. The spaces between are not fully drawn so that we, as viewers, can fill them with our own dreams. They are blank pages scattered through the book of Ooo, waiting for each listener to write their own gentle stories upon them. And yet, the beauty of these spaces is that they do not need to be filled at all. They are complete in their openness. Just as silence in music does not require sound to be meaningful, these empty corners of Ooo do not require stories to matter. Their absence is itself a presence, a reminder that not everything must be explained or explored. Some things can simply be. The spaces between invite us to sit with that thought, to accept that mystery and emptiness are as valuable as detail and revelation. There is also something spiritual in these quiet places. Many traditions speak of the sacredness of wilderness, the holiness of still landscapes where no human hand has left its mark. The spaces between and Ooo carry this same feeling. They are untouched, unclaimed, and because of that they feel pure. When Finn and Jake walk across them, they are not conquering or claiming. They are simply moving through small figures in a vast stillness. The spaces remind us of humility, of how small even the greatest heroes are compared to the endlessness of the world. In this way, the spaces between connect Ooo to something larger than its own story. They remind us of the universal truth that every tale, every life, every world requires silence as much as sound. That the quiet moments are not interruptions, but foundations. That absence is not emptiness, but space for breath, for reflection, for imagination. The spaces between give Ooo room to breathe, and in doing so, they give us room as well. When we think about the spaces between as more than geography, we begin to notice how deeply they echo the rhythm of the show itself. Adventure Time was never afraid to pause. In the midst of battles, in the middle of adventures, even at moments of revelation, there would often come a breath, a shot of the horizon, a few seconds of silence between words. The spaces between in the land mirror the spaces between in the story quiet gaps that carry just as much weight as the louder moments. Consider the times when Finn and Jake would simply walk, no music pressing the moment forward, no dialogue to explain their thoughts, just the sound of footsteps against the earth and the wind moving around them. These stretches of stillness were not filler. They were part of the experience. They gave us a chance to feel the land itself, to understand that Ooo was not only a stage for action, but a world with depth, with silence, with a life of its own. In this way, the spaces between are emotional as much as they are physical. They are the pauses between conversations, the silences that stretch after confessions, the long moments where nothing is said because nothing needs to be. Adventure Time trusted those silences, and in doing so, it trusted us. It trusted that we would sit with them, that we would feel the quiet, that we would let meaning rise gently rather than being handed to us. This trust is rare, and it is part of what made the show feel so real. In life, too, meaning often emerges in silence. The moment after a laugh, when breath lingers in the chest. The quiet after an argument, when words hang heavy but unspoken. The stillness before a change, when the world feels poised between what was and what will be. The spaces between in Ooo reflect this truth. They show us that silence is not absence, but presence of another kind, the presence of waiting, a possibility, of reflection. Even the way the show portrayed landscapes reflected this. Often we saw stretches of empty land, backgrounds without action, skies without movement. These frames reminded us that the world continued beyond the characters. That Ooo was not only what was spoken or fought over, but also what was left untouched. The spaces between made the land feel alive because they made it feel whole. Just as in music, silence is not nothing. It is structure, balance, and breath. In this sense, the spaces between are perhaps the most universal of Oo's silent corners. The Pillow Kingdom, the Desert of Wonders, the Time Room Corridors, the Spider Maze, the Forgotten Isles and Valleys, all are unique, specific, imagined in detail. But the spaces between belong to everything. They are everywhere and nowhere, the quiet fabric beneath all else. They are not a single place, but the essence of place itself, reminding us that every world, every story, every life is built as much on pauses as on motion. To reflect on them is to reflect on our own lives. For just as the characters of Ooo crossed fields and mountains without naming them, so too do we cross days and hours that pass without marking themselves in memory. They are not lost. They are the ground upon which memory is built. Without them, the bright moments would not shine. Without silence, sound would not matter. The spaces between in Ooo remind us of this truth softly, without demanding attention. And perhaps that is why they linger in us, even when we did not notice them at first. We remember the big adventures, the battles, and revelations. But in the quiet of night, when we think back, it is often the still images that return. Finn and Jake walking across a horizon, the sun setting behind them, nothing happening, everything alive. Those are the moments when the story breathes and when we breathe with it. Those are the spaces between. When we think back on every silent corner we visited tonight, we can see how the spaces between weave them all together. The Pillow Kingdom gave us the fleeting warmth of dreams and the wisdom of time lived in softness. The Desert of Wonders showed us the beauty of absence, the way silence can hold memory as surely as ruins. The Time Room corridors stretched into infinity, reminding us of possibility and choice. The maze of giant spiders taught us about connection and entrapment, about the threads that bind all stories together. The Forgotten Isles and hidden valleys revealed sanctuaries scattered across the land, places of quiet life and unspoken memory. And now, with the spaces between, we see that all of these corners share the same essence. They are pauses in the song of Ooo. They are the stillness that gives shape to the sound, the silence that lets the wonder shine brighter. Without them, Ooo would feel crowded, too busy, too restless. With them, it breathes. It becomes a world that feels whole, a land of both noise and quiet, both story and pause. The spaces between are more than geography or silence. They are an invitation. They remind us to notice the moments that are not marked, the landscapes without names, the pauses without words. They remind us that meaning does not always come from the loudest moments, but from the quiet ones that cradle them. A horizon glimpsed in passing, a valley never explored, a sky stretching endlessly without comment. These are the threads that hold Ooo together. And perhaps they are the threads that hold us together as well. Our lives, like Oo's, are filled with kingdoms and battles, with quests and revelations. But between them are long stretches of quiet, walks, pauses, breaths, days that pass without drama, moments that leave no mark except the comfort of their existence. These too are important. These too are part of the story. The spaces between remind us that life is not only what is remembered, but also what is lived quietly. It is fitting, then, that Adventure Time never explained or explored every corner of its world. The forgotten places, the unnamed valleys, the background mountains, they remain silent. And in that silence, they become eternal. They live on as possibilities, as dreams, as places we can always return to in our imagination. The spaces between remind us that no map is ever complete, no story ever fully told. And that is a gift, because it leaves room for wonder. As we drift now toward the end of our journey, think of the land of Ooo not only as the kingdoms and adventures we know, but as the vastness that surrounds them. Think of the empty fields, the unnamed ridges, the quiet skies. Think of the pauses in conversation, the silence after laughter, the breaths taken before change. These are the spaces between, and they are as much the voice of Ooo as anything else. And so the silent corners of Ooo reveal themselves not as side notes or forgotten places, but as the very heart of the land. They show us that silence is not absence. Silence is presence of another kind, the presence of memory, of possibility, of rest. It is in silence that Ooo becomes most alive, most real, most timeless. Let us hold that thought as we settle back into our own silence tonight. Let us carry the stillness of the Pillow Kingdom, the hush of the desert, the hum of the time corridors, the patience of the spider maze, the solitude of the aisles and valleys, and the infinite breadth of the spaces between. Let them rest in us as reminders that quiet has its own magic. And now, as the story closes, may that magic carry you gently into your own spaces between, into the silence of night, into the dreamlike corners of your own world, into the rest that waits for you beyond the edges of words. Good night.